everybody and welcome back to Stampin Squirrels. It's Debbie and thanks for joining us today. So today I am going to demonstrate this wonderfully, I love these colours together. It's a heat embossed foil resist kind of technique. And we're going to blur these colours together. I'm absolutely loving this. This is really cutesy and just my sort of colours, all subtles. So I'm going to show you the technique that I've used in order to sponge all of these. Now sponging is one of my favourite techniques, and I have got a little tip to share with you to show you how I keep my sponging colours separate and together. So let me tell you the dimensions for the card and what you'll need to put this together, and then we'll get on. So in order to make the card, what you'll need is a piece of Seaside Spray. I've used Seaside Spray, lovely light blue colour. This measures 4 inches by 11 3/4 inches, which is a standard half a size, essentially, piece of A4 cardstock in the UK. And that's been scored at 5 7/8 of an inch. And then you're going to need a piece of Whisper White, 1 at 3 1/4 inches by 5 7/8 of an inch. 1 at 3 inches by 5 1/2 inches. You'll need a small piece which is 3 inches by 1 3/4 inches, and then you'll need a piece for the inside which is 5 5/8 by 3 3/4. And then finally you'll just need a piece of scrap just to do your sentiments, etc. with. So the card base, super simple. Score it at 5 7/8 and then obviously just burnish it and get a nice strong fold. Put that to one side. So the bit that you're going to concentrate on is your piece which is 3 inches by 5 1/2 inches. And what we're going to do is heat emboss onto this so that you create the resistance. So if I bring back the card, you'll see all these lovely silver bits here. These bits are obviously resistant to the sponging that we've done, and then so we're going to create this technique first. And so you'll need some Versamark ink. Obviously you'll need your embossing buddy to reduce the static, and you'll need your heat embossing, and I've used the Stampin' Up silver. This is empty because what I do is I decant mine into a Chinese takeaway tub. I do this for all of mine. It just makes it easier to spoon, and you can more or less put your piece of card into it and the excess falls back into the tub. So I use one of these for my embossing powders. I'm going to start. Now the stamp set that I'm going to use today is the Good Morning Magnolia stamp set again, which I'm loving. And I'm going to stamp that all over because I want a kind of a flower sort of pattern on my background as the background. So I'm going to bring back my card again and just show you very quickly. You can see that I've stamped the large flower here, then a little bit here, and then some other bits and bobs around the edge. So I'm going to create a background first. And so I've got the large stamp, the large flower on a stamp, and the reason that I haven't got it on a much bigger block is because I only want the top part really to go onto the piece of card. I've got the small flower and I've got the leaf as well. So I'm going to, because this is a large stamp, I'm going to take my Versamark and I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to take it to the stamp, not the other way around. Now the thing to remember that you need to be very careful of when you're stamping with Versamark is that if you do a lot of CPR stamping, you are going to get the extra mark from the edge of this stamp all around imprinted onto your card, and that's going to give you some lines that you don't want. So be really careful when you press down, not to press down too hard, just light enough to obviously do the stamp. So I'm going to go like this. Squirrels are wonderful, squirrels are wonderful, squirrels are wonderful. And I'm going to take that off. Now the danger is that you can't see where you've embossed, so I need to just move this around in this light to try and see where everything is. And then the leaf, I'm going to come back with the large flower like that. Take another look at it in the light so I can just see where I am. Alright, so I've got a small part here just at the bottom, which you could probably do with a little bit of the flower, and that's good. So I'm happy with that. Put those out of the way. Did I use the embossing buddy? I can't actually remember. That's terrible. So before I stamp this, of course, I should have wiped this all over onto my piece of card. So here's a little bit of scrap. All over like this, onto my piece of card with the embossing buddy, because it reduces static. And I'm just so cocky, because obviously I do it all the time, that I probably don't think that I need to do that. Well, you should have done that, so be told that's the first step that you have to do. You have to wipe it all over with your embossing buddy to reduce the static. You don't want this embossing powder going all over the place. Now, believe it or not, that is a whole tub of silver. That was a brand new tub of silver in there this morning when I popped it in. It doesn't look like much, does it? But it was. So I'm going to take my tub. And now you can either use a spoon, sometimes I've got little plastic spoons inside of mine, or my other tip is that you use a piece of scrap. So you can take a piece of scrap like this, and then I just pour it on. Now I've got another little tip for you to show you that I'm very keen on. So on my card here, I've got a couple of marks that I don't like. They're in the way, and I don't want this to be caught when I heat them up. So just here is a small mark. I'm going to take a small paintbrush and just rub it with that paintbrush and get rid of it. Now if you rub off your line, which I've done with that bit, I'm going to go back to my embossing powder. I'm going to do it again, so that definitely has smudged just there. So I'm going to use my small brush again. This is a really good little tip, especially if you are a bit of a CPR stamper and you get those extra lines around your image. If you do, then don't worry too much. You can just take a small paintbrush and just get rid of them. So when you're happy, heat tool on, and my tip is that you always heat this up so it's really nice and hot first before you start to try and cure the embossing powder. And when it's really super hot, I have it on number 2. I'm going to just take my bone folder and I'm going to just cure this off. Okay, so that's the card. It's been cured and it's nice and dry. Give it a couple of minutes just to dry properly, because when you start sponging over the top of that, you don't want it to move or anything. You just want to make sure it's really, really dry, and it normally does dry really quickly. So I'm just going to put this to one side a minute because I want to show you my sponges. So I'm very particular about when I sponge. I like to make sure that I have a particular finger dauber or sponge allocated to that one colour, and I never mix them. And so this is what I actually produce. Every year when the ink colours come out, I keep my finger daubers like this. And so I've created a little grid, so I know exactly where each one is, and I only ever use that dauber for that colour. But this is how I prefer to use my finger daubers, and I like to keep them separately. And I guess it's because I do so much sponging that I particularly like to keep my stuff this way. So the other way that I sponge, and it depends on the type of sponging that I'm doing, if I'm not using a dauber or I can't use a dauber, then I do use a latex sponge. These I think are makeup sponges, but I particularly like the way and the effect that you get from using these sponges. They're super soft and it makes it really easy when you're circular motion sponging. So I'm going to do a little bit of both today using both colours. So if I bring back this one, the 3 colours that I've chosen to merge today is Blushing Bride, and then we've got Balmy Blue, and then the final one is Bermuda Bay. And I'm going to blend those together. Now this is the card again, and you can see this one's Bermuda Bay, this one's Blushing Bride, and then this one here is Balmy Blue at the end. I've made sure that I've done it very lightly. if you can always add, but you can't take away. So once you start, then you need to make sure that you've not got too much ink on your sponge. So I'm going to start with the finger dauber and show you the impact, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like when you do it with the latex. So here's the finger dauber. I always stamp off when I'm starting. So let's say I'm going to start this end, and I'm doing this in circular motions. So I've stamped off and I'm going over the edge, and I'm just sort of doing, once I've done a circular movement along the edge, of just doing an up and down movement, in and out. And I think if you can see the impact, it's a little bit blotchy. I tend to use my finger daubers when I'm doing the edges like this, if I want a nice colour just to offset the edge of a card. So I do that, and I sometimes do the corners with it. If I take the latex sponge, for example, and Stampin' Up do their own sponges, I just find them a little bit rough for me, but it's personal preference. Stamp off, and then I'm just going to come in again. Circular movements, really gently, because if you catch the end of your card, it will pull it up and it may rip it or crease it, and then you'll have to start again. So there, I think you can see that you get a much sort of smoother look. So I want this to be quite light, where I'm going to join up with the blushing pink. So I'm just going to take this over a little bit more. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. And then I'm going to start with my blushing bride. And can you see, wherever you've heat embossed, it's resisting the colour, so you're still going to see that lovely silver. Alright, so I'm quite happy with that. That blushing bride is now finished, and then I'm going to move on to Bermuda Bay. So I'm quite happy with that, and I'm going to put this to one side just for the moment. So the next bit that you need to concentrate on is your greeting. And I'm going to actually blend this in exactly the same way that I've blended the foil resist card. So I'm going to stamp "Your Friendship is a Blessing" onto my piece of scrap card. I'm going to obviously stamp that with Versamarker. So where's my embossing buddy? Rub it all over. And then I'm going to bring back my silver embossing. And then back with the heat tool, and then we're going to cure that off. Now once that's cured off and that's all nice and shiny, we're going to cut this out using the So Sentimental rectangle here. So I'm just going to bring back my card again and just show you. So we've got the cutout shape here, and then I've just backed that up with a piece of white, which is the smaller white card dimensions that I gave you earlier. I'm going to cut this out now using my machine, and I'm going to come back to you. So that's cut that out nicely. So I'm going to what we're going to do now is we're going to just blend this the way that we blended the others. So very quickly, you can either start in the same direction, do the same colours and the same choices, or you can just mix it up a bit. I might do mine a little bit back to front. Starting with the Bermuda Bay then. And what I want to do is I want to give that a nice little edge, so I'm going to bring my finger dauber in. And the way to do that is to make sure your edge is fully supported. So I hold it very close to the card so it can't move. There. So that's all of the sponging done. So I'm going to bring back my piece of card, the small piece, and that is going to stick onto there. Like that. And then I'm going to bring back the piece that we did, and I'm going to take the backing card. I'm going to stick that on as well. Okay. Then the other piece of card obviously is for the inside. Bring back my bone folder and just reinforce that crease at the top. I'm going to open the card so it's like this. So I'm going to turn it on its side, and here's the piece that we embossed, and I'm just going to stick that down with snail as well. Like so, and then I'm just going to take my bone folder and reinforce that. Okay, so this part of the card is now complete. The next thing, I guess, is just putting the rest together. So we've already got our little greeting here, and actually as I look at it I think the white edge is too much. I'd prefer that to be slightly smaller. So what I'm going to do is just take my large scissors and I'm going to just trim this. I'm going to put this up on dimensionals. So we'll bring our dimensionals in. And the other thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to put some ribbon on. So if you look at our previous card, I've used this really lovely white sheer ribbon. It's now retired, but I've got quite a full reel of it and it's so pretty and it seems to go so well with this card. So I'm going to take a piece of that and what I did was I looped it so it was like this, and then lay it down and then put this over the top of it. But in order to get it to stay in place, you need to just do a deer. So you can either put a glue dot here, or I just took my snail glue and put a little bit of glue there so it was tacky. Then I'm going to put it in position. Make sure I'm happy with the position. And then once I'm happy with the position, I'm going to just note where it is and put a little bit of snail glue there and stick that down. Okay? So when you're happy, peel off your dimensionals and then position your top card. I need that to lay flat and you to lay flat, so please get in position. Okay, so once you've got that into position, wiggle it about a bit, make sure it's straight and stick those down. Lovely, and then I'm going to just tidy up those tails and give those a snip like that. So the last thing really to do is decorate it. So if I bring back my original one, what I've used is the Noble Peacock rhinestones. They're so pretty. And that is the card. So this is the heat embossing foil resist card. Now if you don't have heat embossing or a heat gun at home and you don't know how to do heat embossing, or you can't do heat embossing, then what you can do is you can actually use paper. So Stampin' Up's got these lovely foil papers. This is a particular celebration paper. I get this out and just show you. This was free with a £45 spend in the UK, and this is the flowering foil speciality paper, and as you can see, look, it's already foiled. So I cut this piece. This would go like this, and I just want to show you one where I actually used this paper So a different colourway, this is Highland Heather, and this is just black ink on the front here. But I actually used this paper as the foil resist and then did the colourway. So this is Bermuda May, I think this one is Coastal Cabana, and then Highland Heather in the middle. So yeah, and a little bit of Highland Heather striped ribbon just underneath it. So you can see if you don't have heat embossing, then you don't have to rely on heat embossing. You can actually get foiled paper and it'll work just as well. But I think it's really nice to create your own backgrounds using the heat embossing. And it's been a lot of fun. So get your finger daubers out, get your sponges out, and let's have more sponging in the world. You don't know what you're missing. That's all from Stampin' Squirrels. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. We post new videos all the time and we really love your company. So come back soon. Thanks everybody. Bye bye.